And that said, I thought I was rich, I thought I was lit, I thought I was happy. Then I came to United States and the currency changed, now it's no more bragging. I said, fuck it, I'm back in my back then. When I come back, can't let that happen.
And so, when STC signed with Def Jam, he became the first and only South African rapper of his generation with an international record deal. And given STC's position in African hip-hop at the time, fans believed that an international record deal would help him break into hip-hop's #1 market, being America, which he has admitted time and time again to be aiming for.
What's up, man? My name is Nasty C, all the way from South Africa. I am in LA right now, trying to link up with as many artists as I can. I'm actually here to finish my album, but I figure, here's the thing, I've always told my label that I wanted to kind of establish myself out here and be a part of the culture out here and just kind of plant my feet in the scene out here, you know? Because a lot of the music that comes out of here, a lot of the hip hop that comes out of here, when I say here, I don't mean just LA, I mean the States in general. That's the music that really inspired my music. And you can hear it when you listen to my music, so I want to be a part of the culture out here, man. You know what I mean? And I feel like the most natural way for me to do that is to reach out to all the artists, not just artists that are like big and have made it and stuff like that, but artists who are on my caliber, and I mean out here, because I'm big back at home, but out here no one really knows me, so I'm up and coming out here. That's why I say, even if you're up and coming, man, just hit me up, you know? And I wanna work with as many artists as possible. I don't care if I end up doing 30 verses, 50 verses, that would be even better. I would like that, you know what I mean? So if you're a dope artist from out here in the States, hit me up. You know, my comment section, my DM. If you're in LA, it just makes more sense, man, because I'm here and we can shoot the video. Same day, next day, drop the video. Next day, same day, it doesn't really matter.
But years later, fans have started questioning if Def Jam was the right label for Nasty C, as Nasty C's international growth hasn't grown to match fans' expectations, more especially growth in the American market, which South African fans had long wanted representation, as South African rappers only really dominated the continent and have had a tough time establishing presence in the #1 hip-hop market in the world. But for some time, fans had hoped that Nasty C's partnership with Def Jam would be the one to successfully break a South African rapper into that specific market. But things aren't looking good. You can understand this better by looking at Google Trends, which shows that searches for Nasty C peaked in 2021, but for 2022 and 2023, Nasty C dropped significantly, and there are technically no signs of improvement or even living up to 2021, which is very worrying as Nasty C had just released an album. But even that album is showing no signs of impact on Nasty C's numbers, especially overseas. When you start to dig into Nasty C's listeners, you realize that Nasty C had listeners spread out through some continents, with a few thousand listeners in most US cities. But at the moment, cities like San Francisco, Denver, Detroit, Minneapolis, or even Vancouver and Calgary in Canada are back to zero. Literally zero. The same goes for Delhi or Imphal in India and some cities. And technically, yes, Nasty C still has some listeners in these foreign countries, but they are fast running dry, with Nasty C's strongest base still being Africa, where he was already strong. In fact, strong enough to be the #1 rapper for a few consecutive years. Some arguments are being made about Nasty C's latest album, which is controversial because some fans are defensive about it, whereas some fans argue that it doesn't live up to the standard that Nasty C had set for himself. With regards to the label specifically, fans have started wondering if Def Jam had different reasons for signing Nasty C, as opposed to what we had initially thought. This comes as the US hip-hop market is seen as having peaked and overly saturated, and fans now think that maybe Def Jam saw Nasty C as an entry into the African market as opposed to pushing him in the already overly saturated hip-hop market in America. More especially because Def Jam has also launched an African division in Africa for the first time and has been making signings. And this happened around the same time they signed Nasty C. Fans started having these thoughts when Nasty C said that he asked his label to help him with features in the States, but he felt they were taking too long to actually do it. So he ended up having to ask people himself.
No one knows I'm doing. I asked my label to do this for me. Excuse me, but I asked them to recommend like artists for me to work with that are up and coming, you know, so that it makes more sense. And I just feel like they're taking too long, man. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if they're overthinking it or whatever. I don't know. But they're taking too long. I asked my label, I asked a couple people that I work with, and they're just taking too fucking long, man. So that's why I wanted to do it like this. You know, I hope this video makes it to all the dope artists that are out here. And we get some shit done, man. I'm excited. Let's get it.
And almost 2 years later, there's nothing to show for it. The results are just disappointing, as Nasty C holds the key to the African market as the leading rapper on the continent, which then means that it should be easier to sell Nasty C to most US rappers who are looking to diversify, as it makes more sense from a talent and numbers perspective. If an overseas rapper wants to enter the African market, there's not even one rapper that can offer the sort of reach that Nasty C has. For example, the biggest market for hip-hop in Africa is South Africa, and there are technically no more than a handful of rappers who have ever had 1 million monthly listeners, let alone have 1 million listeners for a few consecutive months. And Nasty C gaps 99% of the entire rap game in this country by over 1 million monthly listeners. But Def Jam seems incapable of getting this guy proper features. And this is just what fans think. And we know the thirst for African diversification is growing in the US, as rappers like Meek Mill have also come out on Twitter with requests for African rappers to feature. But Nasty C never seems to land any of these features, even though he's numerically more favorable for such. However, recently, Nasty C seems to have changed his tune a bit, stating that he now only wants to work with people who have a voice that fits his, although it doesn't mean the voice in literal meaning, but we assume whether or not the person would actually fit in with his style. In an interview with CNN,
I really don't want anyone to take offense to what I'm about to say, but I'm at a point where I don't really have a lot of people on my list. I was like, I want to work with this person. People are amazing, and I have favorite artists for sure who are just straight gods at what they do. But I'm okay with not having songs with them. I'm fine with just being a super fan of them. I just want to make music with people who have a voice that fits the song that I'm making. You don't have to be a so-and-so from so-and-so. I don't care about that. If I find your voice to be exactly what I'm looking for because I can't deliver that, whether it's the raspiness or the sweetness in the voice that I'm looking for, let's do a song. I'm looking at it as like a beat is a canvas for me, and I have to paint something on top of it, right? I don't care where the brush comes from. It's the paint that I care about. That's how I look at it.
And although that sounds musically wise, some argue that Nasty C may run out of time. Stats show that hip-hop is set to decline massively on a global scale. If Nasty C doesn't leverage his numbers now, he may actually suffer the same fate as most African rappers, like Shane Eagle, as new genres are emerging in Africa and are straight taking out hip-hop's market share. One label that seems to understand leverage is Sony Music, as they did to Tyler what they did with Tinashe. In Tinashe's interview, she spoke about how Sony Music linked her up with some of their artists like Chris Brown in order to get her name out there.
Like, yes, that was labeling.
Yeah, knowing you, it actually like hurts me that like somebody put you in that position and
I was
forced
so
you to
young
do that.
too, which is crazy because I feel like I did that song when I just signed to that label. Like I was probably like 20.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
and I think the public perceives it as you doing
Of
that
course.
willingly and
Yeah.
not understanding that like you lack a lot of control in that situation.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you do. 1,000%.
If any, like you probably like.
And especially when it comes to singles, like for example, that song with Chris, that was a song that I put, a lot of like, we all wanted it to be like this big moment, this big single. So I feel like in their mind, they were like, you need this support. And he was like their biggest artist that they had on rhythmic radio at the time. And to me, I was like, well, this is a pop song. So I really don't feel like we should put Chris on it. Like that, I don't like that doesn't compute to me, but I don't know.
And they recently did the same with Tyler, as they put it on a tour in Europe with Chris Brown and ended up with a Travis Scott feature on a now globally successful hit, Water. And although many questioned if Travis Scott was the right choice, those who understand music understood that it was all a numbers game, as Travis Scott is one of their biggest artists at the moment, and all that pairing did help Tyler get a name out there. With regards to Nasty C, fans have noticed a whole lot of interviews that Nasty C has done overseas, but not all agree on the effectiveness of such. As for example with Tyler, the reason why many people watch her interviews is because she has a global hit song, and many people around the world are interested in the story. But when Nasty C does interviews, they are mostly watched by his own fans, which basically means that the podcast that he's on end up gaining more than he does. All in all, Nasty C seemed to have had much bigger features before Def Jam, like A$AP Ferg or French Montana, when these guys still had some international market share, than he did after signing with Def Jam. And don't get this wrong, features aren't the only way to get in, but fans just don't think enough is being done anyway in any regard. All of these recent events have led to questions of whether or not Def Jam is actually capable of breaking Nasty C in these international markets. But equally, some question if Nasty C does have the superstar factor to make it out in these markets. And that is because markets like the US are spoiled with endless supply of talent. But you guys let us know what you think about this. Do you believe Def Jam is still the right label for Nasty C? Do you think they've done enough to actually push Nasty C in international markets? And do you think Nasty C has enough talent to actually stand out in these international markets, enough for him to actually become a household name? Comment your thoughts down below, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up.